Hello disc golf fans and welcome to the round 1 back 9 feature card coverage from the 8th Euro Tour event of the year, the Alutaguse Open. One of the greatest events of the year, one of the nicest courses, and a lot of players agreeing with that. It's a beautiful course at the Mäetaguse disc golf park in Alutaguse, Estonia. Let's take a look at the top 10. We saw Tamm from our card shooting a scorching hot 6 under front 9. Mauri Vilman, Morten Brenna right behind that at 5. Daniel Blair, Silver and Pekka at 4 under. Other players on our card not quite reaching the top 10, but luckily for them the back 9 is very scoreable. Potentially even more scoreable than the front, at least that's what the public opinion seems to be. And we're starting on a long yet very scoreable hole on the back 9, hole 10. Nice downhill 132 meter par 3, probably playing closer to 120. For the right-handed players, the shape is pretty simple. It's just a big hyzer shot with your slightly overstable distance driver. You can kind of choose your width here. You can either go with a pretty straight look, or if you have a big arm and you feel comfortable with it, you can go as wide as you want to. There was a nice right-to-left tailwind on this one today, and looks like Väinö is taking advantage of that. Going even a little bit too wide, but he skips inside the circle there. It's one of the most beautiful greens you're going to find in all of disc golf, with the circle made of the rock foundation and the basket on top of one of the smoothest rocks you're ever going to see. And Jakub there with a nice shot inside the circle. I'm expecting a huge hyzer from Albert here, and that's exactly what we're seeing. This looks also a little bit wide, kind of like the first 2 shots. And yes, he's outside the circle there on the right side. The green is very beautiful, but it's also very dangerous. If you're running from outside the circle on this one, there's a high chance that you're ending up outside the circle on your next one. And yes, they're flipping it up a little bit too much, going even past the basket. We're gonna have some scary putts to this elevated, windy green. Jesse first. And not quite to be. We saw a couple of great highlight putts from Jesse on the front 9. Making 2 putts in a row from outside the circle, but not quite this time, as Albert just lays up. And Väinö there. Good, strong stroke, not quite to be. And Jakub with the only birdie on the card. That's a nice way to get your back 9 started, especially for Jakub, whose front 9 was less than ideal, going 2 over in the front. Yes, they're a good par. Really, Albert was the only guy from our card who is, I'm sure, happy with their front 9. Everybody else kind of taking a little bit more bogeys than you would like. But as I said, very scoreable back 9, and every hole on the back 9 is very birdieable for each and every one of these players. Even a potential eagle opportunity, possibly on some of the later holes. I will come back to that later, as we'll move on to hole 11. Possibly the trickiest hole to birdie on the course. It's 120 meters along the fairway, probably the straight distance to the basket is closer to 90. It's a huge left to right moving shot. You have to get around this corner of the trees with preferably an anhyzer shot with either very turned over mid-range or a very turned over fairway driver. And then after the corner you just need to glide your way to the right. A very difficult hole to park. But quite often do we see people in circle 2 on this one. And Jakub here with the conventional high turnover. Didn't quite see that landing, but he's not inside the circle. And Väinö here, going mid-range. Also today there was a pretty nice wind on this one, as the wind is pushing with a bit of a left to right headwind. And you can see that shot from Väinö. Beautiful angle. Still, I believe, ending up outside the circle there. And a nice stat for you guys. Only 6% of the field landing inside the circle on their first. But actually 45% of the field landing inside the circle 2 on their first. So just look at that contrast. It's very difficult to get inside the circle. We saw Albert kind of contending with the right side trees. And Jesse here looks to be a nice line, but fading out a little bit at the end. Gonna be a pretty simple par from there. And that's what happens quite often on this hole. You don't have the perfect drive, and then you have just a very short approach for the par. As Jesse has done here, just inside the bullseye for par. 77% of the field got a par on this one. So very difficult to birdie, but also pretty difficult to bogey. There was not the biggest scoring separation on this one, but hopefully Jakub here able to give it a bit of a run, not quite. And Väinö from just outside the circle. That's a nice putt there, pushing his score back to even par after that tough front nine. And that's a great way to do it. Everybody else with some pretty simple pars. I believe this is going to be the toughest birdie on the back nine. There might be some holes with a higher scoring average, as even this hole was playing under par on average. But it's definitely the hardest birdie for these guys. And moving on to another hole that is difficult to park, yet very easy to get within putting distance, especially for these guys. A big hyzer shot, 113 meters, but it's not just a regular hyzer. If you want to park this hole or even to be inside the circle, you have to play it really high with a lot of hyzer and pretty inside as well. If you throw just a regular driver, hyzer, you're almost every time ending up on the right side of the basket, about 10 meters. And also this takes quite a big arm to even reach the basket. So let's see, Väinö here, going exactly for that inside high hyzer. Might even be too far inside. But wow, just look at that. Looked like out of the hand it could be even too far inside, but he's flown just over the basket to 5 meters. What a nice shot. This is also a nice line from Jakub here, but you can just see how far this hole is playing, even with that powerful glidey hyzer, ending up 15 meters short. It's also a nice little power difference comparison between the players. You can see Albert here throwing just a big hyzer, and he has no problem reaching the hole. Still not quite as close as Väinö though. And Jesse there. That's a really nice looking line. He didn't get it as high, so this is going to be pushing forward more than the others, and what a nice shot there. Just 4 meters away. This was another hole which was very easy to get within circle 2. As Jakub from circle 2 just barely misses it, but pretty difficult to get within circle 1. And Albert there, nice birdie, continuing on what he did in the front nine with a very clean play, going 7 under on the round. And Väinö as well. Now he's starting to play, going 1 under with 2 birdies in a row. This was another hole that was pretty difficult to bogey. A lot of the players in the field got a par. Just above fourth of the field got a birdie, and only 14% got bogey or worse. So not a lot of bogey potential here. Yes, just a short putt for the birdie. No problem there, well done. And our card is off to a nice start on the back nine. These first three are some of the trickier holes to birdie on the back nine. Definitely still not difficult. But we're moving on to some of the most birdieable holes on the course. Starting with hole 13 here. Par 4 going downhill initially, just 203 meters. Most players are trying to play left side of this first tree you see on the right side of the screen right now, just to throw a hyzer in front of it and set yourself up with pretty nice putter or a mid-range approach. Approach also playing very good for a forehand. This green is filled with OB on the right and long side, and also left if you pull it way to the left. It's not a very long par 4, especially with that downhill grade off the tee, so you don't need a lot of distance. Some people though still opting to go for a huge flex shot here, but let's see what Väinö is going for. He's going for just a low hyzer. That's a very nice, safe shot there. Not a lot of distance, but setting himself up for about 100 meters to the green. Albert trying to do the same, but this is pushing too far straight. Contending with that bushy tree, but gets a great kick out of there. That's a nice result. And this is another way to play this hole. You can take that overstable forehand and hyzer and play it down to the fairway. That's just a perfect shot from Jesse, setting up for another nice forehand approach. Should be a pretty simple chance for the birdie from there. And Jakub is actually going for the big shot here. Trying to go around the first tree, also around the second one. But looks like he's just hit the second tree on the right there. But you can see him bouncing out. That's going to be a fine position. Still a very makeable approach from there. Just about 80 meters left. And Väinö here with a mid-range. This is actually pretty far for being an approach from this hole. About 100 meters, but he's on the edge of the circle there. Pretty decent shot. I'm sure he's not quite fully satisfied with it. And Albert here, leaving his forehand a little bit short. Also not the best approach. Definitely not bad, but not quite what you're looking for on this one. And even Jesse a little bit wide here. The only one inside the circle, but that's also not parked. Let's see if Jakub can get it really close here. He's got a great angle. And that's a nice shot. That's what you want on this one, as it is one of the more scoreable, one of the easier holes on the course. But Albert here, just missing it on the left. That's gonna be a frustrating par. This is the fourth easiest hole on the course, playing almost 0.2 strokes below par in average. And Väinö there as well, same thing. 44% of the field getting a birdie on this one. And Jesse is going to be part of that 44%, as he's getting a pretty nice start to the back nine, already 2 birdies in a row. And even Jesse, Väinö and even Jakub, all of them having some of the slower rounds. This back nine really sets up well for a lot of good birdies. As we're gonna see Jakub going back to even par after being over par for the majority of the round. With that nice birdie there. The weather is getting calmer, not as much wind as there was earlier in the day.
I just think the plastic is very premium. It's a high quality material. The way the disc feels in my hand.
I think it's the quality of plastic.
It's unlike any other plastic that you'll find in the industry.
The quality is better than any other company out there.
Again, just consistent plastic. It's something I can consistently trust on every single throw.
There's so many discs to choose from, and I guarantee if you tried every disc in the lineup, you're gonna wanna put multiple discs in your bag.
It's extremely high quality. You can only say so much, they have to eventually just try it themselves and see.
And we're moving on to one of the signature holes on this course. There's a lot of holes that are signature worthy, but this is definitely one of them. A triple mando hole. Kind of a USDGC vibe on this one, as you have this triple mando about 75 meters off the tee. It's not a very big gap that you have to hit, so you need to be precise. Perfectly straight shot. Some players opting to go for a little bit of a hyzer or an anhyzer. But yes, with the forehand. Nice wind for the forehand today, as the wind is pushing slightly from right to left. And that harp forehand has got himself inside the circle there. Really nice control. If you miss this triple mando, which is quite rare, not very often do we see somebody missing it completely. You have to proceed to the drop zone that is about 15 meters to the basket. But that's a nice one from Jakub. Also going with the harp. Look at the contrast there between Jesse going with the forehand harp and Jakub with the backhand harp. And Väinö here. The very low shot, but he has actually stayed short of the mando, so he has not missed it. And still a potential chance from circle 2. Albert with a pretty similar result. Not the greatest shots from those two, and they will either have to try to straddle out to give themselves a putt or just to lay up from here. Looks like Väinö is trying to make it. And what a run it was, but not quite to be there. Albert just laying up for the par here. Not really a hole where you're very happy with the par, as it is one of the seemingly more easy holes to birdie. And yes, hey, what a catch on the right side. Looked like he didn't even hit any chains initially. Just hitting the cage and holding on. And you can see he's not quite happy with that putt. But he's moving himself to 4 under par and shooting, at least on his way to shooting, a pretty respectable round. As Jakub is also 1 under. This hole was another example of just great scoring separation, with 25% of the field getting a birdie, 23% getting a bogey or above, and 50% getting a par. So a hole that you would like to birdie, but definitely not easy with that pretty small gap through the mando. We're moving on to hole 15, that is the most difficult hole on the course, just because of the fact that there's a lot of OB potential on this one. You see the red stakes here are actually lining the right side of the hazard area, so anything left of these red stakes is considered hazard, all the way up until these banners in front of the green. So all of that area is considered hazard. Then you also have the white stakes that are lining the OB line on the both right and left side of the fairway, and also behind the green. Off the tee you're trying to throw something straight and far. And with the approach, important to land very soft, as it is a sloping green on the right side. There's just a lot of elements on this one, but the drive, really important to set up for as short of an approach as possible. And Jesse here kind of challenging the hazard line, but he has got a very fortunate skip, almost skipping towards the right instead of the left, and he looks to be safe. And that's a picture perfect shot from Jakub. Pretty good distance, and right in the middle, he's gonna have potentially a mid-range or even a putter shot from there to the green. And Väinö also with a nice angle, kind of almost challenging the right side more than the left. Not the biggest distance there. He's gonna be left with a long shot to the green, but fully okay and very makeable shot. Let's see if Albert can get it way down there. Also putting it more towards the right side of the fairway, but that is in the middle, fully okay. And Väinö here, this is a risky shot, because if this hits the edge of the hillside, it might be rolling away, but it does not. What a nice shot, they're able to stick it inside the circle. And Jesse here, going with the unconventional forehand, fading down towards the hillside. But just look at that touch from Jesse Nieminen. He's gonna have his 4th birdie in a row with that nice forehand touch. And Albert also kind of playing with the hillside, but he sticks it right there inside the circle. Just a fine result there. Some great play from our feature card. This is, as I said, the most difficult hole on the course, but not really looking like it, as Jakub is also inside the bullseye there. Wow, what a nice shot. And we actually have a chance to get a star frame on this one, but Albert just here needed to make that. He's having a bit of a slow back nine here. I'm sure he's a little bit disappointed, but luckily for him, his front nine was quite extraordinary actually, as he was 6 under through the front. And everybody else on the court just gonna tap in for their easy birdies on a hole that was playing 0.3 strokes above par on average. Really well done by the card there, as we're moving on to the final 3-hole stretch of the course. 3 very scoreable holes, but also 3 holes that have some bogey potential. Starting on 16 with the par 5. Not the longest par 5. On the first shot you're trying to get your way either inside of these woods already with a huge shot, or just lay up to the bottom of the hill. And then it's all about just progressing down this fairway. The best second shots usually land somewhere near this FPO tee pad. And then potentially the most difficult element of this hole is this green. It has huge slopes on pretty much all sides of the basket. The only way you can be safe on this one is either to park it or be a little bit short left. It's pretty much just a bullseye ring that is safe under the basket. And Jesse here, going with the conventional safe forehand. This is pushing a little bit too far left though, so he might have a bit of a cutoff angle from there. And Jakub going for the big shot here. Huge, powerful anhyzer here. Needs to stay high off the hill. And he's right next to the FPO basket there. That's a long drive, but he hasn't made it all the way up the hill. So he's gonna have to throw a difficult shot over the hillside on his second. And Väinö here, just playing it with the mid-range under the hill. That is good position there, and gonna have to... Well, that is going to set him up for a long second shot, but a pretty manageable one. That's kind of the advantage if you're going safe off the tee. A lot of the times you have a chance for the birdie, at least some sort of a chance.
And then when I'm coming back, I'm like, it's not over. What the fuck? Yeah.
So Väinö here just needs to throw something straight with a little bit of a finish through the woods. And that is just perfectly done there, right next to the FPO tee pad. Only about 65 meters left from there. And Albert trying to do the same with the forehand, but just fading out to the right. He's actually still gonna have a chance for the birdie, although it might be a little bit more scrambly than, for example, Väinö. And Jesse here, pretty good shape, a little bit on the left side. That's kind of the theme on this hole. Pretty much if you can just cut off a lot of the distance with your first two, you usually can find some sort of a window through the woods to get to the basket on your third. And Jakub here with the furthest drive. He's also right next to that FPO tee-pad. Everybody in birdie position here. Some with more difficult shots, some with easier. Albert there hitting one of the last trees on the left. And look at this angle from Jesse, going around the outside with that forehand. And what a nice approach there. He's inside the circle. Still a very difficult putt though, not easy. As Jakub looks to be going for an overhand shot. That's an interesting choice, as he has some nice straight shots in the bag as well. And Väinö there. That's just an unfortunately common result on this one. The green is so small. Almost impossible to land on there. Unless you're jump putting like Albert there. And I suppose Jakub will do something similar. As he does. And Väinö here still with a bit of a look. Not quite able to get it. He will have to hope that it stayed up there on the green. And Jesse here. What a great birdie this would be. Jesse Nakuttaja. Narrated by Tommi Tikko there. And I very much agree with that statement. Nice putt there. Jesse has got his 5th birdie in a row. After a pretty disappointing front nine, looks like he's still able to play one of the better rounds of the day. Everybody else with just pars here. Another hole that produces a lot of pars. 51% of the field playing it with a par. 25 playing it with a birdie, and 24 going above par. So some nice separation there as well. As we're moving another very birdieable but a pretty scary hole. The drone is flying through this straight gap that, to be honest, is quite rare to see somebody going through that one. The most common gap is a big forehand hyzer around the left side, and that is the biggest gap and also, I believe, the easiest shot on the hole. It's a huge forehand advantage, one of the biggest forehand advantages, I believe, on tour. Because with the forehand you can just throw it high and to the left and let it fall down to the basket. There's OB both right and on the left side on this one. So you need to be wary of that. But this looks like a nice shot. Yes, has almost aced the hole. And he's gonna take his 6th birdie in a row. And even Jakub here, who is not particularly known for being a forehand player, is going with that forehand, and he's inside the circle there. Nice shot. But Väinö going backhand. That's a pretty scary gap, and he's fading slightly to the left, but that should be just fine on the edge of the circle there. And Albert, can he finally get another birdie on this back nine? Only one birdie so far, but this hole suits him so well. And that is just a perfect looking shot. I suppose this has to be inside the circle. And he's right there on the edge of the bullseye. Nice shot from Albert. We have another great chance to see potentially even a star frame on this one. Jakub starting it off. Great putt from 10 meters there. And you can see the wind is picking it up a little bit again. This is one of the windier greens of the course. As Väinö has missed his putt from about 7 or 8 meters. Pretty surprising there. Looks like he pulled it right once again. That's a miss that we saw from him multiple times on the front nine. And Jesse there. Nice birdie. Nice birdies from all Jesse, Albert and Jakub. As we're moving on to the signature hole of this course. Hole 18, par 4, 188 meters. One of the most eagleable par 4s you're ever going to play. Very nice hole. 188 meters, probably playing close to 150. It is so far downhill, and we even had a helping left to right wind on this hole. So the disc that normally would be fading out towards the left side OB are actually gonna stay in bounds. OB right is actually inside the circle on this one, and the OB long is just outside. So the closer you get to the green, the more difficult this hole gets. But looks like Jesse is actually going for the safe shot, which is the forehand. Pretty surprised as he has the distance to go with the backhand all the way to the green. And he's still going over the OB, the cart path is lining the OB. And that's just a nice safe shot there. About 40 meters left to the basket. Should be a pretty simple birdie to put him to 8 under on the round. Jakub here with a really low shot, but a nice skip, and you can see the circle 2 stick. He's right inside of circle 2 there. Probably not going to be a run with that elevated basket, but an easy birdie. And look at the power from Albert, able to go all the way with just a hyzer shot. And that's nice. He's gonna be within putting distance to end his round with an eagle. Väinö trying to do the same. It's wide to the right with a nice overstable disc. Playing it pretty safe, not quite trying to reach the basket. And he's right there inside of circle 2. You can see why this is the easiest hole on the course, as it is playing almost half a stroke below par at 3.55 average. And Väinö here, running it for the eagle. Not quite, but that's gonna be a pretty simple birdie with a short putt. Jakub as well running it. Nice lofty bid. And Albert just gonna lay up for the birdie. He's happy with the score, knowing that it gives him a great chance to be within the top scores of the day. And Väinö there. Disappointing round of 3 under. But as I mentioned on the front nine, he was a little bit sick before the tournament. On the edge of even playing this event. And Väinö actually after the round decided that he's not gonna play another round. Just doesn't want to risk his health for the next week's European Championships. As we see everybody on the card tapping in for a birdie. Nice finish there. And really good back nines for pretty much everybody on the card. Both Jakub and Väinö getting under par with this back nine. And Jesse just shredding the last 7 holes, getting 7 out of 7 birdies. That was some high level play. As we take a look at the top 10, you can see why Albert wanted to lay it up. He knows he's on the lead card, but still 1 stroke back of both Daniel, Davidson and Blair. Both shooting double digits under par. What an incredible round from them. Albert Tamm and Mauri Vilman gonna finish out our lead card for tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this course as much as I did. It's one of the nicest courses all year. And if you want to support MDG Media, you can do that on Patreon. They're working through the night, hardly getting any sleep during the tournaments, to bring you guys this free coverage. You can keep watching it for free if you want to, but also Patreon is a great way to support. I'm Elias Luukkonen, and thank you guys for watching. See you in round 2.